Hello,
Hello, how are you? Good
I
afternoon.
am well. How are you?
I'm good as well. Pretty excited yet nervous.
Oh, it'll be fine. It will be just fine.
I hope so. Thank you so much, though.
So you're at St. Joseph's, Drishti?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, very nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
So it looks like we have 4 people. And are you planning on sort of a 15-minute talk, or were you thinking of a somewhat shorter talk to allow for questions?
I counted my minutes, but I was practicing and I was leading towards like 13, 14
Okay.
minutes. So I think I'm just probably gonna continue with that for now. If it ends quickly, then sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, Professor Torta. How are you?
Well, how are you, my friend?
I am fabulous.
So, are you moderating this session?
I am.
Oh, good. How
Good.
wonderful.
Yes,
we get to hang
nice
together.
To see you. So, see, at the conference, you get to play with all your friends, and this year we are unable to play with our friends, so we get to bump into them, and this is nice. So.
And we can text each other in between.
Indeed. So I've introduced myself to Drishti, but is it Abu? I have not said hello to you yet.
Yes, Abu, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. It's very nice to meet you. I'm Susan Dinan. I'm not NRHC 4. So.
Nice to meet all of you as well. Looking forward to this session.
Yes, Drishti and Abu will be presenting, so I'm looking forward to that.
All right, my student should be joining us any second now, I would guess. She's usually quite prompt.
Well, but the plenary seemed to go, like I finally left the plenary to open this because there's telling you be at least 10 minutes early. And then I was thinking, oh, like we don't have that many minutes anymore. So.
No.
So students, have you been to other sessions this morning? What have you thought about this?
I went to a session that was from like 10:50, I think it was 10:30 to like 11. And I thought like everyone who presented there did a phenomenal job. Like their presentation looked so like, it looked professional. Like the aesthetics was beautiful. Their pacing was amazing. The questions that everybody was asking in the end were all like really, really good. And I was there like, yo, I gotta make some last minute edits. I have to I gotta keep up with everybody else, I really gotta say, like everybody who's presented so far has done a phenomenal job. Like it's really it makes you want to do really good too.
Well, and that's what I appreciated about your comments, is clearly that this is sort of, helping everybody raise the bar a little bit. And I really think that's what we're aiming for. And in some ways, the format means that if you do want to jump away for a little while and tweak what you're doing, you can do that in a way that you can't do at the live conference. So that is nice.
Everything I've seen so far has been wonderful as well. So, and I expect you will be wonderful.
Indeed.
Just as well as all those others. So Abu, relax and it'll all be good.
And welcome to Glynis and Amy and Rochelle. So Rochelle, Abu, Drishti, and Glynis, you are the presenters. And in the order you are listed is Rochelle would go first, then Abu, then Drishti, and then Glynis. Is there any problem with that order? Good. Okay, then I can just read down it and I am less likely to make a mistake. So that is the perfect answer. Okay, thank you very much. We will get going in just 1 minute. I just need to let the conference organizers know that our session is okay.
I have a question.
Please.
Oh, so my advisors told me to ask you guys, but am I allowed to share my screen so there's a visual of my poster?
Absolutely. I will make each of you a co-host in a moment, and then you will be able to share your screen when you present.
Okay, thank you.
go. Oh, now that's interesting. It will not allow me to make you co-hosts. I have to make you host, but the minute I make you host, I'm no longer host, which means that if something, you then are in charge of the meeting, which is fine. But what I will do is I will make Rochelle host first. And then Rochelle, when you are done, you will make Abu host so he has control over the screen, because I cannot make you simultaneous co-host, which is a little weird.
If I could just
Actually,
jump in for a
check.
second, I don't think you need to make everybody co-host. I think depending on how you set up your gallery view, the speaker should be the prominent screen, and everyone should have the ability to screen share.
So everybody already has screen share abilities. Okay, thank you.
I just looked, I have it, so I would assume
Perfect.
they have it.
Okay, lovely. Okay, thank you very much, Chris.
Hey,
All
Chris, how are you?
Oh, I think he's gone. Okay, so the session this afternoon is called Challenging Understandings of the Body. We have 4 presentations. We have 4 students who are going to present. The first student is Rochelle Clarke from the University of St. Joseph, and Rochelle's presentation is Perceptions of Attractiveness. Our second speaker will be Bakker Siddick from the Macaulay Honors College at CUNY, and his paper is titled Fit for Flicks. Drishti Kalia is also, she is from St. Joseph's College of New York. Sorry, different St. Joseph's, I apologize. And her presentation is called Lip Sticking Out in the Society. And then Glynis Halliday from SUNY Orange will wrap us up, and her presentation is on logging into the world of sex work questions and answers. So what I'm going to recommend is that each of you give your presentation in turn, and then at the end of our time, we can ask questions of one another. What I noticed in the morning sessions is that at exactly 1 hour and 20 minutes in, we evaporate. So I am going to keep you on time, because if we start running late, it means that Glynis will lose minutes in her presentation, which isn't fair. So what we'll do is we'll start. And if we get to 15 minutes and you're still talking, I'll just pop in and let you know that we need to wrap up. And then you'll do that and we will move on. So I appreciate that. All right. Rochelle, let's please begin with you.
Can everyone see this?
Yes, it's very clear.
Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Rochelle, and this is my research project. It was on Black is Beautiful, Perceptions of Skin Tone and Attractiveness. So to start out, I just want to tell you guys why I started this research. And it all started with a conversation with my friends. We were talking about how Black women in our community, or predominantly the dark-skinned women in our community, are not really favored or seen as beautiful. People would pick them last as a dating partner. So I wanted to test the theory to see if this is something that's still going on, because you do see it in the media where it's predominantly light-skinned women, and it kind of makes everyone else of the different skin tones feel a little bit more insecure about themselves. So I wanted to test that theory. So I decided to come up with this research where I found 6 photos, 3 of light-skinned women and 3 of dark-skinned women. And I put them in a survey on SurveyMonkey, and I pretty much just asked one question. And that question was to rate each woman 0 to 100 on their attractiveness. And from there, I made sure, I don't have that much social media or know too many people. So I try to reach out to friends who have larger networks so they could spread out my survey and make sure that I have a diverse sample so I can see how everyone in different races and ethnicities view dark-skinned women or light-skinned women in the Black community. So from there, I actually got surprising results. I thought at first that the light-skinned women would be the ones to be highly favored to be dating partners. And it was actually the dark-skinned women. Um, my sample wasn't as diverse as I wanted it to be. It was predominantly women and predominantly Black people, or Black and African American people. So I decided to change the project around and do it from people who are Black or African American versus non-Black or African American. And when I did it like that, the Black sample said that the dark-skinned women were more favorable. And looking at all the non-Black samples, they actually didn't have a significant difference. The ratings that they gave the dark-skinned women and the light-skinned women was pretty close, so I couldn't really make a definite answer about what they may think. So I just say that it's an equal amount. It depends on how they view the women and what their features are like and what people see. Then, so yeah, that was the surprising part about my research. And then to just, top it off with why I thought this was important. I thought it was important to show women, especially in the Black community, that they are beautiful and you shouldn't really be ashamed of how your skin tone is and how people view your skin tone, because you should know yourself that you're beautiful. And it's just from the little sample that I got from my university and then people around Connecticut, it just shows that their mindset has grown from how the media portrays everything, because more people said that the darker skin was beautiful. And for everyone to know that they are beautiful and to not listen to the media and to know that there's actually someone out there that do find them attractive and that they shouldn't give up on certain races or just these particular things that makes them feel less than. They should just keep searching, because not everyone is the same. And I want to do this project again, but with a larger sample and maybe get some people from out of state, so I can see how out of state people view these skin tones and how Connecticut views these skin tones, and see if there's a difference at all. So that's it.
Thank you, Rochelle. You have ended early, and I wonder if I could ask you to tell us a little bit about your methodology. How did you design the survey that people took? What exactly did your participants need to do to complete the survey? That would be helpful for us to know. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So I did my survey on SurveyMonkey, and through there, I made sure to have a consent form. And on the consent form, and then my advisor checked it over, but I put in what the project was about and what I would try to be measuring. But because there was some underlining factors that I wanted to see, like colorism, or if there's any racism that goes towards the picking your dating partner, I didn't want to put that part in because it may change the person's views and answers for the survey. So I made sure it was vague and a little bit detailed to know that this is what they're getting involved in, my contact and my advisor's contact, in case they had any questions about the survey before taking it, and to make sure that they knew the risk and that the answers were going to be anonymous, because that can also change a person's views if you have to put their name on it. And then they would have to not sign, but say yes or no if they wanted to continue the survey. So after that, we put each photo on a different page with the one question of rating the woman from 0 to 100 on a slider scale. And then we asked for the demographics, asked whether they prefer female or male, because that can also depict how the person views these women in their ratings. And then we just thank them for the participation in the research. And then what was the other question?
No, I think you did a nice job of just sort of walking us through the methodology. That was very helpful. And when you got the 75 sort of surveys back through SurveyMonkey, did you then could you tell us a little bit about the way that you analyze the data and the way that sort of how did you use ANOVA to help you make more sense of that data?
So the data portion, it was kind of confusing at first because I did have to take statistics and everything, and it was like kind of like wonky because like for my first time seeing this type of research. So did need a little help with my my advisor to understand everything. But as we were going through it, we saw a lot of like not red flags, but a little like difficult areas where like we saw that there wasn't a lot of men, or there were people who like started the survey but didn't finish the survey. So then we had to figure out those numbers. And then we had to switch around like I said, how we said the Black versus non-Black, we had to switch that around at first because the numbers for that was definitely out of proportion. Like they were like really different. So we had to change that in order to make sense of the ANOVA. And I believe that was it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your unpacking that for us, Rochelle. So why don't we move on? We will have our next paper, and then if you would, oh, hold on, there's something in the chat. Let me make sure I didn't miss something. So we have a question in the chat for you, Rochelle. Jessica, would you mind if we waited and did the questions at the end in case there's sort of connections between the papers? Okay, all right, so that's what we'll do. Thank you very much. So the second paper will be given today by Bakker Siddick of the Macaulay Honors College, and his title is Fit for Flicks. Abu, you should be able to share the screen if you would like to.
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna share right now. Can everybody see?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so let me start. So hi everyone, my name is Bakker Siddick. I'm a senior at City College, and my presentation today is Fit for Flicks. Click it here. There we go. So over the past couple decades, mental health has become an increasingly prominent topic of discussion, with more and more awareness being brought to the subject every year. So today I want to tackle one aspect of mental health, and that is body image, more specifically, male body dysmorphia. So body dysmorphia can be described as a disorder where one has an overly negative perception of their appearance, and it's often induced by societal pressures to look a certain way. Now, while there has been a plethora of advocacy regarding positive body image, the vast majority of this discussion revolves around the trials and tribulations faced by women. As such, the societal pressures that men face and the consequences of these pressures are scarcely examined and are often cut out the picture when talking about this issue. So in this presentation, I want to discuss like male body standards, what they are, how they're enforced, and what are the negative consequences of neglecting this issue, of just assuming that, that men aren't targeted to look a certain type of way. And before I continue further, I just want to make a really quick point, which is that this presentation isn't really to compare like the issues that women face to the ones that men face, to say like, one gender has it worse than the other. It's just to bring more light and just increase the conversation about the issues that men face, because I really do feel that it's underspoken about. So when you think about like, the male body standards, the first like beauty standard that often comes to mind is musculature. The stereotypical ideal man is usually depicted as this like jacked, six-pack having bodybuilder physique. And in this digital age of social media, it is incredibly easy to become bombarded by fitness celebrities and athletes, and all too easy to go down a rabbit hole of drawing physique comparisons, And this has led a lot of men to feel increasingly insecure about their bodies and has factored dramatically in the rise of steroid usage amongst teens and young adults. I think I can't remember the exact statistic off the top of my head, but steroid usage amongst teenagers has nearly tripled from like 20 years ago to now. And while I said a lot of this comparison comes from social media, like comparing yourself to like fitness celebrities and everything. Uh, Even though while that's true, a lot of the societal pressure it comes from us from like the cartoons and shows that we watch. Whenever you watch a show, you see like characters are these super jacked, muscular physiques. Like they always have like these like unrealistic body proportions. And one quote that I found that really showcases this comes from bodybuilder Dylan Haffertippin, which goes, "You don't ever see any average looking superheroes. Everyone was this hyper masculine or superior male. You create this false idea of what the male physique should be." And I think it really encapsulates, like this idea, like we're getting like as a male, you get bombarded by this idea that you have to be this like, super big, super strong guy. Not just from like the movies we watch, but just even from the shows we watch as a kid growing up. But what I really also want to focus on is that musculature isn't everything. And what I mean by that is that men get targeted for far more physical traits than just muscles. In fact, 80% of body dysmorphic disorder cases are actually related to facial features. The primary like cause for insecurity for a lot of teenage males or young adult men is actually hair loss. So male pattern baldness is very common amongst men, and it's actually like the primary cause for a lot of these insecurities, which leads a lot of people to just spend hours at home just trying to like find ways to cover their hair loss or to like never go outside without wearing a hat or just always worrying about like how their hair is looking. Freckles, having acne, dark eyes, these are also other facial features that are generally looked down upon, and as well as like nose size. So rhinoplastic surgery has actually become one of the most common plastic surgeries performed by men because in our society we're like always like so like having a big nose is unattractive. Like you're supposed to have like a small like skinny nose basically. And the thing with like a lot of these facial features, like the pressures for them are much more subliminal. Like when you really think about it, it's not like a direct kind of targeting, but it's like a subliminal like an unconscious form of targeting. Like you never really see a model on TV or on magazines who has freckles or who's bald or has a round big nose or anything. Even though these are like normal features on a guy, you always see like people with these luscious curly hair or like with like a really skinny nose or like a beard, and they never have like any freckles. They have like clean skin complexion. Uh, Moving on, like another major beauty trait that men get targeted for is their height. So, uh, women typically prefer dating men who are at least 8 inches taller than them, and less than 5% of women actually report being willing to date a man who's actually shorter than them. So, in the dating sphere, like men get targeted a lot by their height. Like it's like a joke usually that like oh like girls don't date anybody under like 6 feet tall. Like, but the truth is like it's not just like a stigmatism against like for guys in just a dating sphere. Taller men are also perceived to be financially more successful and academically smarter. So there's like this beauty standard has implication in just general public perception. Like it's not just about like uh it doesn't just hinder people in the dating sphere. It hinders people in like how other people just perceive them on a day-to-day basis or when they're applying for jobs or just everyday life. And one other physical attribute that really plays a role in like everyday basis is skin tone. So men with darker skin tone are much more likely to be incarcerated and found less suitable for marriage. And this topic usually gets mixed in with racial connotation, but even in even in African and Southeast Asian countries where people are predominantly of darker complexion, there's a huge preference for paler skin tone. Uh, like the country where I'm from, like Bangladesh and India, like the neighboring country, they're actually like the leaders in skin whitening products. And there's like a huge cultural preference, like if you're like a paler skin. And the the main user base of all the skin bleaching products are actually adolescent males. So uh tying this kind of in with like the presentations that came right before me, I found like it was really interesting when I was researching was that a lot of cases, if you're looking like in dating, like what's considered like attractive in a partner, uh, dark skinned men were found less attractive than like a dark skinned woman in cases. I think it was in a study conducted in Nigeria. I can't remember it was either Nigeria or India. I can't remember which one, but it found that like dark skinned men are found to be like the most unattractive, like or like suit the least suitable partners in relationships. So it shows like um, that skin tone is like a huge factor, that a huge physical trait that men are usually targeted against. Another major uh, physical feature that people are usually like talking about for men is genital size. So it's to no surprise that like penis size can be one of the greatest cause of insecurity for men, and it's actually the most Googled body part for a lot of men. You know, like people are always Googling like how they stack up against other guys, and they're always very insecure about this. And one of the main reasons why this has become like an increasingly huge part of cause of concern is due to pornography. So pornography always creates like a skewed perception of sex, and it basically feeds off of people's insecurities, and it's caused a huge spike in male dissatisfaction with their penis size, leading to a dramatic rise in popularity of penis enlargement surgery. And in a survey conducted on men who've had penis enlargement surgeries performed, 40% of them actually admitted to knowing that despite they were despite being statistically average size, um, their indulgence in porn has made them has convinced them that they are inadequate. So like I've mentioned like a couple of like the repercussions of you know male body standards, like like it forces people to take like steroids or encourages like skin bleaching. But I think one of the best depictions of the negative repercussion of these societal pressures is seen in the prevalence of eating disorders amongst men. So 25% of anorexic patients are actually men, and 50% of binge eating disorder patients are actually men as well. Um, and these statistics really shocked me because you don't really ever think like like when you think about like people with eating disorders, uh, you wouldn't expect men to have so much like such a high percentage of them to be suffering from anorexia or binge eating disorder, but that it's actually like a lot more than most people would generally uh, imagine. And one thing you might know over here is that like you might think that the lifetime prevalence for eating disorders for men is actually a lot less than women. But one of the main reasons why there's such a discrepancy over here is actually due to the fact that a lot of the statistics on men is greatly underreported. So one of the main reasons why like a lot of these statistics that one of the reasons why they're underreported is due to like the cultural stigma that men aren't supposed to speak out on their insecurity. And as a result, many men often choose to like suffer in silence instead of like appearing weak to the public. And this usually ends up with very severe consequences. Uh, One example of this can be seen in Danny Bauman's case. So Danny Bauman is the vice president of eating disorders charity, and he suffered from terrible body dysmorphic disorder throughout his entire adolescent years and going on to his young adult life. And it would cause very severe anxiety attacks, eventually resulting in a near fatal trip to the ER. And after recovering, Danny laments on his situation and states that it became so extreme because he felt embarrassed to ever speak out about it. He's quoted to say, "I was always told by society that having body image disorder was a female issue and a male-free zone. I was a male. I had to be strong, uncaring of the image I showed to the world, and free of any concern around my body image." And his is just like one of a plethora of like cases where like men just would rather just sit at home and have anxiety attacks and just suffer in silence than speak out about their issues, you know? This is just all too common. But the truth of the matter is that this culture of stigma of men being stoic entities doesn't just make men reluctant to speak up, but it also makes the general public reluctant to listen to them when they do speak up. And the reason for that is like, you know, like a lot of people are just like very dismissive of issues whenever men do actually speak out about their insecurities about their body. And one case I found about this was in the case of Ken Capobianco. So Ken is the author of a novel called "Call Me Anorexic," the Ballad of a Thin Man, which is his autobiography in which he describes his lifelong struggle with anorexia. And in this novel, he recounts that, like, I'll just read out the quote. He said, like, "I suffered from severe, life-threatening anorexia for 30 years, and if I ever even hinted to people that I had anorexia, I was always told, 'No, you don't. You're a guy. Be a man.' I knew I had a problem and sought help, but a male with anorexia was as foreign as ET to them. I was a freak," recalled Ken. "I was being denied treatment from every inpatient eating disorder program throughout New England because I was a male." And in his story, like, you know, like when I was reading about it, I found like absolutely crazy, like, you know, that someone could get denied for like 30 years straight. But it just shows you that like even when guys do, like, you know, find the courage to speak out, that society isn't really accepting of of men who speak out on this issue, you know? We've created this like cultural stigma that men aren't supposed to have any kind of insecurity, and that like they're not supposed to feel like anything bad about their body image. But that's like, you know, I should, like, you know, it's not really true. Like, you know, they get targeted in all types of ways, and that we should be more accepting of them when they do speak up. So that leads me to, like, you know, talk about like how can we resolve this issue? And like I said, we have to break this cultural stigma that men don't feel insecure, you know, and we have to be more welcome to them, like to like get them to speak out more and actually acknowledge and listen to them when they do speak out. And I feel like we need to have more advocacy programs, like, you know, campaigns to raise awareness about all the different physical traits that men get targeted for. You know, it's not like I said, you know, like most people usually assume that men just get targeted for like their like if they're not muscular enough, but there's so many more things, you know, like about height, about skin tone, about penis size, about facial features. And I think we need to raise awareness about all these different things if we're gonna like combat this situation. It's also important to like promote therapy, to warn against like the risk of eating disorders and the risk of steroids, because a lot of people just are ignorant about, you know, like the risk that steroids can have on a person's life. And I think it's just good to like that we have to like start reaching out to other people and like break the silence by like asking those around us, see if they have any insecurities, and like start the conversation about this topic instead of just like acting as if it doesn't exist. And yeah, that's my presentation.
Thank you very much, Abu. That's a very important topic. And it's so nice that yours followed Rochelle's, because that you were able to sort of amplify some of the issues that she had raised. So thank you so much. Could I ask you to stop sharing your screen, and then that will allow Drishti to share hers. And our third paper today will be given by Drishti Kalia of St. Joseph's College of New York, and it is called Lipsticking Out in the Society.
Thank you. Can you view it?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Drishti Kalia, and I'm a senior psychology major from St. Joseph's College in Brooklyn, New York. The topic of my presentation today is lip-sticking out in the society, and is a topic that has impacted several women that I have known throughout my life. I remember when I was barely a teenager, I really wanted to apply red lipstick and go to a friend's birthday party. And however, I was stopped by my grandma who told me to wear anything but red lipstick so I don't attract unwanted attention and remain safe from all the judgments from the outside world. It made me think that for centuries, women have been persevering to find their identities and to establish themselves in a society that has consistently served patriarchy, even if that meant letting go of their own desires to look and feel beautiful. To feel empowered and celebrated has been a tenacious process for women and has required an immense effort in building self-confidence and self-esteem, and that continues today. Getting inspired by the success stories of other powerful women and idolizing them, also known as empowering mimicry, has been one of the major motivators for self-esteem and self-confidence. Lately, women have been working on replicating the body postures and physical appearances of their role models, including choice of clothing and cosmetics, which has been contributing a significant amount in helping them to exercise their free will and lifestyle choices. However, the desire to exhibit power and live life on one's own terms brings about one of the most controversial aspects of patriarchy, the societal judgments about women who do not conform to the norms. Even though different cultures exist throughout different parts of the world, they stand united by patriarchy, and prior research has shown that women are repeatedly subject to harsh judgments based on their choice of clothes and their looks. There are certain stigmas and definitions of what constitutes an appropriate looks for females, deviations from which are perceived to generally communicate substantive information about a person. Similar judgments have known to likely ignite fears in females who choose to wear lipstick across cultures. Upon reviewing the previous studies that have been done on the effects of wearing cosmetics, there was an observed association between the use of makeup and an increase in the level of self-esteem and body positivity. However, it was also found that comparatively less research has been done on societal perceptions and the stigma that lipstick wearers are subject to daily. I conducted a preliminary experiment exploring if and how people view women differently when they wear lipstick as opposed to when do not, across different cultures of India and the United States of America, and the impact that those perceptions have on women. I hypothesized that a woman with no lipstick would be judged less harshly in terms of ratings than the woman with the red and red lipstick across both the cultures. Sorry, I meant red and pink lipstick across both the cultures. So I did an experiment where I had 95 participants, 45 males and 50 females, and they participated from various cities in India and the US. Out of them, 35 were randomly assigned to the no lipstick condition, 26 to the pink lipstick condition, and 34 to the red lipstick one. There were a total of 51 participants from India and 44 from New York, out of which 83 identified as heterosexual, 4 identified as bisexual, 2 identified as homosexual, 2 identified as other, and 4 preferred not to say. Also, religiously, 44 identified as Hindu, 5 identified as Sikh, 2 identified as Jewish, 1 as Buddhist, 2 as Jain, and 43 identified as Christians. So for my study, I designed a lipstick attitudes online survey on Qualtrics, which was an 18-item survey that asked participants for the level of agreement to 18 statements related to judgments about qualities of women using a 7-point Likert scale, where 0 stood for strongly disagree until 6 that stood for strongly agree. Examples of the statement included, I think the woman is intelligent, I think the woman is beautiful, among others. There were 3 conditions that consisted of the same woman's pictures with either no lipstick, pink lipstick, or red lipstick. Another 3-item follow-up survey was presented to females. The follow-up survey consisted of questions like, now imagine if someone told you that the color of the lipstick you're wearing is too provocative. What would you do? Among other questions with similar intensity, with answer choices consisting of, I'll still choose to wear lipstick irrespective of the judgment. I'll not wear it in front of the person who just passed this remark and probably wear it on some other occasion. I'll choose to not wear it at all. I'll confront the person about their judgments, and I don't know what I'll do. The informed consent form was presented online, but the participants were informed about the entire procedure beforehand over the phone before they signed off the forms. Since the purpose of the study was to see if participants rated certain qualities differently when viewed with different lipstick colors, the ratings provided support. People across both the cultures tended to rate the picture with no lipstick as higher in traits like intelligence with a mean rating of 4.66 and standard deviation of 0.725, and kindness with the mean rating of 4.4 and standard deviation of 0.91, as compared to the pink lipstick where the mean for intelligence was 4.62, standard deviation 0.94, and mean for kindness was 4.62 and standard deviation 1.13. Considering the red lipstick, the mean for intelligence was 4.32, the standard deviation of 1.1, and mean for kindness was 4.29 and standard deviation of 1 respectively, as indicated by a significant independent groups t-test with the t of 57 as 3.37 and a p-value of 0.001. Across cultures, it was found that participants from USA rated the women lower in terms of traits like compassion with the mean of 4.3 and standard deviation of 1.09, and punctuality with the mean of 3.95 and standard deviation of 1.56, regardless of the color of the lipstick, as compared to the participants of India where the mean for compassion was 4.69 with a standard deviation of 0.79, and the mean for punctuality was 4.4 with a standard deviation of 0.95, as indicated by the same t-test. During the follow-up questions for female regarding the judgments, even though results were not largely different from each other, it was still found that women from the US were more likely to choose to wear lipstick of their choice, which meant where the mean response for the questions like, now imagine if someone told you that the color of your lipstick you're wearing is too provocative or makes you stand out, what would you do? The mean responses were 4.75 and 4.9 with a standard deviation of 1.11 and 1.17 respectively, as compared to the women in India where their means were 4.35 and 4.77 with standard deviation of 0.97 and 1.44. Thus, more women in the US said that they would choose to wear their preferred lipstick despite the judgment, except for the workplaces where Indian women had a higher mean response rating of 5.88 and standard deviation of 1.41 than in the US where the mean was 5.08 and standard deviation of 1.14. Hence, since the respondents rated the women with no lipstick higher in terms of positive qualities as compared to women with lipsticks, even though they were the pictures of the same women, but with a different lip color, it can be seen that perceptions of people regarding the difference between lip colors, as well as societal influences, happen to dictate the judgments they tend to make about women. Some of the key differences observed between responses of the Indian participants and the ones in the US are that people in India rated the women higher in compassion and punctuality, which might partially be because of the way women are expected to be tremendously disciplined and compassionate as a part of their spiritual identity. Further, it was observed that in general, women were more pro-female and rated the woman higher in all conditions compared to men. The picture of the woman in red lipstick was also comparatively rated less in sensitivity and was rated as more likely to drink alcohol. Interestingly enough, it was found that the people who disagreed about the fact that the woman was likely to ask for unwanted attention tended to agree with the statement that she was provocative. However, it is imperative to note that this was preliminary research and repeated rounds might yield different as well as stronger results. Also, the results of this study are not incredibly significant because of a relatively smaller sample size available for the study. Hence, it could also be possible that people from different ethnicities and age groups might weight their experiences in a similar fashion once the sample size is increased substantially. Nevertheless, this brings us to an understanding about human behaviors related to the way women are subject to harsh judgments based on the choice of how to present themselves superficially, which might lead to future experiments about the meta effects of gender in terms of judgments based off of physical appearances and whether those exist because of the power dynamics of the male authority over women that the society had established centuries ago. The fact that more females rated themselves as proactively making a choice to wear whatever lipstick they want to also gave way to the fact that more and more females are becoming increasingly conscious about their empowerment. And hopefully, we are headed towards a direction where societal judgments about women would subsequently subside. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Drishti. That was very nicely done. It's nice to have the international comparison. And again, you know, it's echoes of the papers that came before. And you know, the session's coming together very, very nicely. So hurrah for all of us. And we have our last paper today will be given by Glynis Halliday of SUNY Orange. And Glynis is talking about logging into the world of sex work, questions and answers. And when Glynis finishes up, we will then open the floor to questions. And you're welcome to ask questions of individual participants or ask larger questions of everyone. So Glynis, please.
I had myself muted. Thank you very much. I'd like to open by asking the audience a question. What do you think of when I ask you to picture a sex worker? Feel free to answer out loud or think it to yourself. That's fine. Well, today I would like to speak specifically about a relatively new form of sex work, which is technologically facilitated sex work. My name is Glynis Halliday. Welcome to my presentation on logging into the world of web-based sex work. In this presentation, we will be exploring a few key components affecting this industry, including legal, social, and economic factors. Let's begin. Sex work is often cited as the oldest profession. This claim may be up for debate, but sex work has undeniably been around for a very long time. Pictured on the screen is an image of a hatira, educated higher class sex worker in ancient Greece. This specific image is from a cup dating somewhere around 490 and 480 BCE. We can all agree that sex work has been around for a very long time, but sex work today looks very different from the sex work of the past. Part of this is due to industrialization and the restructuring of urban spaces. In days of old, sex workers were subject to a relatively small geographic area, meaning that their customer base was limited by local population. The increasing prevalence of urban spaces means that sex workers could access a much larger population within the same geographic window. It's here that we have what many people imagine when they think of sex workers. It's maybe what you imagined when I asked the question at the beginning of the presentation. However, sex work continues to evolve with the times and now occupies the next frontier. So what is the next frontier of sex work? That is technology. The invention of computers and later webcams and their increasing prevalence in the home during the 90s sparked a flame that completely changed the course of this industry. While in-person sex work markets were subject to limitations in time, geographic location, and the services that they could provide, online sex work has almost endless possibilities. Consumers have access to individual interactions, but also to endless streams of content. These services offer alternatives to in-person traditional sex work models. Today, the online sex industry is thriving and includes webcam sites, subscription-based services like OnlyFans, and more. So, is technology beneficial for the industry? While the migration of sex work into new online sectors has fostered renewed animosity in the form of anti-sex work agendas, the use of technology has also introduced a number of advantages. That brings us to my thesis that despite conflicting views on sex work, the advancement of technology, as well as the introduction of a virtual market, has been beneficial to sex work as a whole in social, economic, and legal spheres. Today, with cell phones, tablets, laptops, and more, sex work is only ever a click away. But if we're going to talk about sex work, we have to talk about one of the most influential factors affecting this industry, which is legality. What specifically are the legal factors surrounding sex work? The legal models of traditional sex work include illegality, legal but highly regulated, criminalization of buyers, decriminalization of sellers, which is known as the Nordic model, and completely decriminalized. The legal model adopted throughout most of the world is illegality. This model has a range of problems, including putting the health and safety of sex workers at risk. Growing awareness of this has led many to advocate for the Nordic model. The Nordic model was implemented in Ireland and in Canada in 2014, and later in France in 2016. In this model, only buyers and facilitators of sex work can be charged criminally. Critiques of this model argue that criminalizing consumers only encourages pushing practices underground, which is ultimately more detrimental to providers. In places where sex work is completely legalized, strict regulatory methods are enforced. These regulations include locations where sex work is or is not permitted, and make sex workers complete compulsory doctor visits and more. Now, decriminalization of sex work allows all participants to live without the threat of criminal charges. While the legalized model allows the government to impose regulations on sex work, the decriminalized model gives very little in government interference. There are only a handful of decriminalized models throughout the world. The Australian state of New South Wales was the first in the world to pass jurisdiction on decriminalization. And in 2003, New Zealand became the first country to decriminalize sex work. Today, academic research surrounding sex work has overwhelmingly shifted from the abolitionist view in favor of some form of legalization or decriminalization. And many places in the US are pushing for decriminalization today. Now, online sex work platforms such as camming and subscription-based services operate in a legal gray area where there is limited regulation. The regulation that does exist is usually under the guise of anti-trafficking law. However, the influence of online sex work has the potential to shift perceptions and legality of sex work as a whole. This brings us to the social factors. Let's begin with social risks and benefits. Use of technology does come with some new risks. These workers can be subject to things such as stalking and have individuals track them online and post their private information. But despite this, the benefits tend to outweigh the risks. Online workers overall have a greater control over the services they provide, what time they work, and how they choose to run their businesses. They have drastically lower rates of sexual assault as well as physical violence in the workplace, mostly because they are typically working on phones or computers within their own home. Gentrification is a phenomena that has been noted in sex work circles. Gentrification is defined as the movement of higher socioeconomic status individuals into places of lower socioeconomic status, resulting in investment, and is generally characterized by an upward transition in class, status, and income. Some individuals see problems with the increasing movement of higher socioeconomic class individuals into online sex spaces and argue that it has not been beneficial. However, involvement of higher socioeconomic status individuals in this industry is not new. For better or for worse, there has been a historical class division when it comes to sex work. Consider the hetera of ancient Greece from one of the original slides. These courtesans served only the wealthiest, providing intellectual stimulation as much as sexual. Other groups of sex workers existed to supply other social classes. To give a more recent example, 19th century New York City also had distinct class division within this industry. The upper class was women who inhabited lavish parlor houses, leaving their houses only to go shopping or promenade, while lower class individuals in this industry typically worked out of less lavish houses or solicited directly in taverns, theaters, or the streets. Although individuals are increasingly participating in online sex work regardless of class, they are now operating in the same areas or websites. Unlike gentrification that occurs in physical neighborhoods, there is no cap on the number of people that can occupy a website. Following historical trends, it can be hypothesized that different classes would have entirely different consumer bases. And additionally, increasing participation in this industry by high-profile individuals serves to regulate the whole industry by writing who we generally believe these services are for. It brings in attention, which increases overall visibility. Examples of this would be Beyonce's Savage remix, or more recently, Bella Thorne joining OnlyFans. So how does the changing appearance of sex work alter societal perception? Although visibility creates more opportunities for outspoken criticism, it also lends itself to normalization, which brings us to the economic factors. According to authors Cunningham and Kendall, while outdoor sex work offers a relatively inelastic supply, online sex work promises a nearly endless supply. Providers have the ability to reach any person at any time, at any place. Despite current downward economic trends following widespread shutdown in the US due to COVID, the larger market access provided by the internet, as well as the promise of future technological advancements, looks very promising for this industry. Finally, the use of technology has been paramount to the economic expansion of this industry, and future technological advancements will likely lead to further growth. The first major boon to this industry was the creation of home computers and the internet, with webcams following soon after. Today, smartphones have opened up an entirely new level of access. New advancements, such as virtual reality, will likely bring this industry to even greater heights. The camming sector is one area that has already begun to establish infrastructure to integrate these new technologies, with some individuals already using these technologies today. If the sex industry is only expected to grow, what does this say about consumers? Well, it means more people are expected to be spending money on sex than ever before. As time goes on, topics surrounding sex are becoming less and less taboo, and these issues are beginning to be talked about more openly. As we move towards a future where technology will become more and more integrated into our daily lives, I wonder what effect this will have on the sex industry. The use of technology in sex work has been essential to the strides it has made in recent years. Following this trend, sex work will continue just to become a more normal part of society. Imagine a future where sex work is a normal part of the service sector, providing a necessary service. Well, there is a chance that that future is not so distant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glynis. All right, so I want to thank the four presenters. Those were very thoughtful, just really very nicely presented pieces of research. And there's some wonderful points of overlap. And so let's see, Jessica has posed some questions in the chat. What I would like to do is just ask first if the students who gave presentations have questions for one another. And then I'd like to know if anyone in the audience has perhaps questions that they would like to frame to all of the presenters. We should have a good 20 minutes for questions and answers because you were also careful with your time, for which I thank you. But eventually at about 2:20, they will pull the plug on the session and it will just end abruptly. So just know that, because I don't want anyone to feel like, I don't know, they got cut off mid-sentence in some intentional way. All right, so for presenters, do any of you have questions for one another?
I have a question, I think, for Drishti, about, so I know you talked about like the different lipsticks, like, you said red and pink. So I just want to like, if you extrapolate your data, like how would it, how do you think like people get perceived for other color lipsticks? Like I've seen some people with like, I mean, it's not as common, but like maybe like blue or like black or whatever, any other color, right? And I'm not like expert on lipstick or anything, but I'm pretty sure like there's like different like textures of like lipsticks. So like, do you think like the textures play a role in how someone perceives them, or like something?
That's a very interesting question. I definitely think the colors and differences in the lipsticks do play a vast role in how people perceive them. However, with my research, I just wanted to take like 3 different colors on 3 different spectrums so that people just like simply answer questions and do not get over confused with the stuff. But I think like even with the extraordinary colors like blue and like pastels and all of those branches, probably like people might have like all the different types of judgments in the world that they might have. And that's a great idea for like another research for research sometime. So thank you for your question. That was amazing.
Any of the other presenters, do you have questions for one another? Okay, well, I'm going to return to the chat then, because Jessica's put in some really thoughtful questions throughout the presentations. And Jessica, do you want to ask these? I mean, you know, they're your questions instead of having me ask them.
I don't care. Either way is fine.
Okay, well, let's have you pose them, and then you can direct them toward the particular people who you had in mind when you compose the questions. Thank you.
No problem. The first question I had was regarding the pictures. I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names, but it was how people perceive them, and I was wondering if it was based on relatability, like if they saw themselves similar to the pictures, did they think they were more beautiful, or if they could recognize someone that might have celebrity features.
Oh, okay. So this is something me and my advisor actually talked about, which was very interesting. So I believe that it could be a mixture of both, because people are more knowledgeable about skin tones and learning how to accept themselves for who they are and just, be comfortable in their skin. I feel like that kind of contributed to how they responded to the photos. So if they had more knowledge about this and they're okay with themselves and their skin tone, I feel like it would be projected onto the women that they saw in the survey. And if they're more into celebrities and how celebrities look and how you're supposed to look this way, like on Vogue or something, they would have a different view on those photos. I think it's definitely both contributes to how they responded to those photos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Jessica, excuse me, Abu, Jessica posed a question for you. Why don't I take this one, Jessica, and you can take the next one, we'll share. And what she asks is, do you feel men have enough resources to deal with the increasing issues that they know that they have about their bodies? Or is it that the resources are there, but they're not comforting for men? Do men need different sorts of resources than women do?
So like the question about resources, I feel like for men, it's like, I don't know, like it's a like the issue that a lot of men feel is like everybody can kind of like relate to them, but they never like really speak out to them, you know. So they never like go out their way to seek any like actual help, you know, like in a lot of like positive, like guys don't really like go out and seek therapy or anything, you know, kind of like keep it to ourselves. And when it comes to like certain ways, like, you know, a lot of guys like to do like what I call like shortcuts. Basically, they take like a easy quick fix solution. So like steroids, like in the gym, they're actually way more common than like people would ever like really assume. Like, I remember like when I first started working out, like guys would just approach me and ask me like, "Yo, if you want, I can like hook you up with like this stuff, like easy." Like it's actually a lot cheaper and way more prominent than you would think, right? So a lot of people, they turn to like, you know, the like shortcut solutions, and like they do give like some kind of results, you know, like they prefer those, or like instead of actually like, you know, turning to healthy resources. And I feel like a lot of the resources out there, they're like, I don't know, they're out there, but it's like it's like a stigma between like, you know, going out and actually reaching help. And like when it comes to like insecurities about like, okay, like if a guy's insecure about like, you know, his penis size, like he's never gonna like tell anybody else, you know, like they usually like try to like compensate in some other type of way. If it's like there are resources out there, but it's like guys just don't take advantage of them. They'll take advantage of some other shortcut means to like, you know, get a easier, quick solution, you know. Or like with like the facial features that I talked about, you know, there's like a lot of guys will turn to like, you know, hair transplant surgeries, or like they'll do like rhinoplastic surgery for their nose and stuff. But that's more like, you know, you kind of succumbing to like societal pressures, and like you're doing like because you want to like fit in almost. But it's not really like acceptance for like, you know, like, oh, like, you know, I accept my body for what it is, like, you know, I'll be happy, like this is like how my nose looks, like, yeah, like, you know, I'll embrace like a bald head, you know, like there's nothing wrong with those like traits, really, you know, it's not like there's no physical deformities or anything, you know. But like people usually like would try to like hide it, like, or like people are trying to hide it with like wearing a hat, like, you know, I feel like a lot of guys just take like these shortcut routes, you know. That's what I would say to that.
Thank you. I'm just scrolling through the chat, so just give me one moment. Okay. So I wonder, are there, Jessica, did I get to all your questions, or is there still something in the chat? I've just scrolled through it.
I'm not sure if it was in there, but it was in reference to the lipstick presentation. I had a question on that one.
Please.
Okay, I was curious because I know throughout the years, Marilyn Monroe, Madonna, and Lady Gaga has made an impact on society. Do you think that also makes a view on what they'll look at for lipsticks? Like if they see Marilyn Monroe with red lipstick, does that symbolize sexuality? Or Lady Gaga with her different colors, does that mean people will not respect them as much because they think they're outlandish?
So what I think is when it comes to women, like I think gender disparities might take place in this case. So if men associate those women with certain different qualities, like if they think Marilyn Monroe is more sexual and stuff like that, so they might associate her lipstick color with, you know, more sexual connotations. However, if women would want to do something like that, like for instance, if I would want to apply red lipstick and if I think of her as an inspiration who's going out and doing what she wants to do, irrespective of all the judgments that she's been getting. So I think that's going to be a more positive contributing factor in the way women want to express themselves in like the society and stuff. So that's what I was also talking about in my presentation, that looking at idols or people who they think are like, you know, role models for themselves really like contributes to building body positivity and self-confidence. So I think when you see these icons portraying, you know, breaking barriers in the society and doing what they want to do really helps with confidence in women, but that also leads to more judgments from men, if that makes more sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drishti, and thank you for the question, Jessica. Please.
So it's for the sex worker presentation. So I remember in my recent class, crime class, we were discussing legalizing sex work, and a student brought up sort of the claim that if you legalize it, it can sort of open up a viable option for a career path for young children to go into, like instead of, you know, working regular jobs. So I just wanted to get your sort of your opinion on that. And is that actually the case in, like, say, in the areas that they have actually legalized sex work, or is that essentially just a misconception?
While statistics on that specifically is a little outside of the realm of my, or the reach of my research, I can't imagine that in places where sex work is not only legalized, but also a normal part of a culture, that it wouldn't necessarily be seen as a bad thing or an abnormal thing for people to join that industry, because the goal of legalization or decriminalization is it not only improving the status of sex workers, but also improving their living conditions. And so somebody potentially in a place where sex work is legalized would be able to, it would be a normal job. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
I have like a question, like continuing on the whole topic about like sex work and everything, which is that like I know you talked about how like technology and like it has like it's been changing like sex work as a whole, and like what do you think of like something like a, you know, like how OnlyFans are like becoming much more prominent, or like Snapchat premiums and stuff like that, right? So like would you say that's like a baby step towards like legalization of that, or like a new form of this? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. I think part of where this is starting is that people don't necessarily always connect OnlyFans or Snapchat premium to sex work. So there is this separation, or there was a separation between the identity of sex workers and participation in this on these platforms. And that kind of lends itself to the class division that I have talked about in sex work, that people of higher social status can separate their identity of sex worker from their normal life more, which leads to public perception surrounding it being more positive. So yes, I hope that answers your question.
It's not a question yet, but I keep thinking about the connections between the papers by Abu and Glynis and the sort of the presence in pornography of that begins to define how men feel sex should be experienced, therefore making real sex less enjoyable because whatever virtual reality is going on in pornographic movies, or whatever they are, reality isn't going to live up to that. And clearly men are becoming less confident in their ability to live up to this. So, so on the one hand, we have, the pornography, a form of sex work that seems to be, damaging to consumers. And then we thinking about Glynis, and obviously the damage caused by trafficking and the exploitation that is part of sex work, and then the effort to figure out if there's ways to recognize sex work in a way so that it is less damaging to those who are, certainly those who are doing the work, and then those who are providing it. And I wonder, like, as the two of you look forward, Glynis, you indicate that legal changes might change the way society sort of understands sex work. And if you want to sort of expand on what might be good about that and what you think would be beneficial. And Abu, I just wonder, I mean, do you think that there is a future for, I don't know, some kind of a pornography that is less, that is just more based in reality, and thereby something that people could perhaps enjoy more because it is something that they could see themselves doing? Or is the entire point of pornography to have it be so over the top that it is decidedly different from what one does? I don't watch pornography. This is a very poorly articulated question. I apologize.
So to answer your question on potential benefits, as I discussed in my presentation, sex work has been around for a very, very, very long time. And what does that indicate? Well, that indicates that there is a very real demand for it. And it's not something that has gone away through the progression of time. And it's not something that is expected to go away. It's only something that is expected to grow as perceptions of sex become less stigmatized. So that in itself has clear benefits, I believe, to society as a whole. But one of the main benefits of legalization or decriminalization is the benefits that it gives to both providers of sex work and consumers, mainly in the form of health, safety, and risk of police interference or being arrested, facing legal consequences. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
And to like talk about the part what you said about like is like pornography going to become like more over the top, and like I honestly do think it's going to become like even more over the top. Like that's kind of like the point of pornography. It's not really for like realism. It's like to be like I don't know, like a hyper form of realism or something. Like it's hyper, I don't know, it's like it's very over the top. And like the way technology is going, like pretty soon like virtual reality, like it's been like a thing that's like in talks, like, there's like virtual reality, like headsets that you could wear, and like even like the videos nowadays, they have like 360 videos. Like it's like it's always like upgrading, and it's always becoming more and more extreme. And that's like as sex toys and everything, as those become better with like technology, as technology improves, I think everything just it's gonna become more and more extreme. Where like I just think like the whole industry is like is very like detrimental actually. Like as I was studying everything, like the effects that it really has on a person, like like how like it really creates this distorted perception of like of sex as a whole. Like a lot of guys are like they're dissatisfied with like the reality of it, and they're like more infatuated with like concept, I guess, of sex more than like the actual like act of it. Like like it's very like it's so much like you could talk about it, but I really do think like it's more like a negative spiral, like downward spiral, with like everything potentially leading to worse and worse stuff, like just going more over the top, just becoming a bigger, more integral part about people's lives. And I think that can have like detrimental impacts on like how on relationships, on like body positivity. I do think like as like Glynis was saying, like it's gonna become like more and more like accepted within society, but I think it's gonna have negative impacts on like the consumers. I don't know like about like from the producer's point of view, like like the participants, whatever. But I'm saying like for like the consumers, I think it's gonna have like a pretty negative, like increasingly negative impact in the coming years.
And could I say something just in response to that?
Yeah.
While I agree, there hyper or unrealistic expectations, specifically in pornography, are a really prevalent issue. In other forms of sex work within the sex industry, I would say that there is more so of a break from that. And especially in sex worker identities, sex workers are queer, sex workers are fat, sex workers are disabled, sex workers are people of color. It deviates from porn and the I'm just trying to say that those expectations aren't as prevalent in other forms of sex work. And also a trend that we've seen in sex work today is something called the girlfriend experience, which is where people are essentially paying to have a relationship that mirrors a normative romantic relationship. And so that's just something interesting that is becoming more prevalent today, and speaks to the progress of this industry, what it is the needs that it is servicing and what it is for. So just something interesting.
Thank you. Very nice answers to kind of big questions. I wonder, are there other questions for our presenters? All right, well, let us then applaud our presenters for 4 very thoughtful presentations, and for answering the questions that we posed so well. I would like to thank you each for the work that you've done and for sharing it with us. I am going to wrap us up now because I know they're gonna kind of blast this session out any minute now, and I just don't want it to stop when someone's mid-sentence. That just seems so rude. So I hope you enjoy the next session and the events that come later today. And thank you so much for joining us.